We want our reader to go beyond our essay. We want our reader to take that essay with us and make them think, right? Or to inspire them, right? Spirited examples can inspire them to act or to change, right? And again, if you're trying to get them to persuade, then your examples can make your ideas seem reasonable. It can make them seem justifiable. It can add credibility to your position, right? You're going to give us an example and like, oh, okay, yeah, I totally get what you're saying then. If that's the case, then yeah, that totally makes sense that that's what you're talking about, right? So that's how they can be persuasive. So when you're planning an exemplification essay, right, we're just going to follow pretty much that standard form that we looked at in chapters 1 through 3, right? We're going to have a thesis that makes a point, right? We're going to have that narrowed topic followed by that attitude that you're going to take about that topic. And you're going to support it with examples, right? And we'll talk a little bit about that here as we get through the chapter, right? Again, they're going to help develop your thesis. And so during the invention stage, you're going to really want to list as many examples as you can, right? And it says you can test your idea by looking at the kind of examples that you're getting, during the invention stage, right? So remember, you can brainstorm, you can free write, you can journal, you can question, you can do all those things, right? So just think about as many examples as you can based on whatever prompt that you're working with. And then, start maybe grouping them by type and, look at, okay, is that the best example I can give? Is that really going to be something that my reader can understand? Can I develop it? Can I explain it in a way that's going to make sense? Can you provide enough examples? So do you have enough breadth and depth, right? So this section is going to talk about, what is the rule of thumb? So like you said, there is no easy equation. Writing is messy, right? So I can't tell you, 2 examples is plenty, right? It depends on the topic, right? Sometimes one example is plenty to prove your point. Sometimes you need multiple examples to prove your point. It just depends on the kind of point that you're making. So first of all, you need to make sure that you've given us a sufficient range of examples, right? It says it's just as important as choosing an appropriate number. Right. So what does that mean? Right. Well, a range would mean variety. Right. So, so instead of just having like a bunch of examples that show us the very same thing, it's just you've got multiple ones showing the same thing. Showing us a variety of examples is important. Right. Can you give us, and again, if you can't find a range that to support it, then you need to think about, well, is my thesis too broad? Do I need to narrow it? Do I need to change my thesis in some way, right? So choose examples effectively that also use them effectively, right? They accomplish nothing if they do not support your essay's main example. So that means basically, make sure the example actually is the example of what you say it's going to be. But that sounds like, well, duh, but you'd be surprised at how many times I'm reading a paper and they set up a point, but the example they give me doesn't really match what they say that they're supposed to be telling me, right? So again, make sure that you are being very clear and that everything matches well. Did I go down too far? Okay. Again, obviously transitions. So we're always going to be coming back to transitions and we're saying the same thing every time. Make sure that you're using those words and phrases that link all of your ideas cohesively, coherently, so that we understand, how this example works towards the previous content, right? You may offer examples that are just another example of the same thing. You may offer examples that are alternatives, right? So they're not the exact same thing, but they're another variation, right? So remember range as opposed to multiplications, right? So if I'm going to say, well, here's the exact same thing, but in a different color, as opposed to, well, here's another way to look at this, right? Then I'm going to have a different word that's going to express those, right? So again, transitions are really important. So we're revising an exemplification, right? We're going to, again, the structure is, I'm sorry, not revising, but the structure. introduction, body, conclusion. So it's the same 3-part structure. We're going to have 3 body paragraphs, right? So nothing has changed there. My thesis is going to be at the end of my introduction. And the only difference here is I'm looking at 2 different kinds of exemplification patterns, right? The one is I am going to have 3 different examples to support my thesis, or I'm going to have one extended example that I'm going to break down into sections to show how it supports my thesis. So I think one of the, let me go here to the exemplification essay. I should have had this open already. Sorry that I didn't. So I think one of the prompts actually lends itself to just a single extended example, right? Right here, right? I think this, no, where is the one? Yes, right here. So number 6, this is the one that obviously is that single extended example. So you are proving that you like to work cooperatively with others, but you're not going to show 3 different times where you've worked cooperatively with other people. You're going to choose one example of where you worked cooperatively with someone, and you're going to use it as the standard that shows in general how you like cooperation, right? So, you're going to set up by saying, oh, I like to work cooperatively with people. That's something that really gets me going, right? I've done this for a long time, but, and there's one particular example in my life that really, shows, the ideal kind of cooperation that I love the most, right? So that's kind of the way you set it up when you're only going to give us one extended example. You're going to say that this example reflects everything that I love about working cooperatively with someone, or everything that I hate about working cooperatively with something, right? So